I just want to say before we take the last vote and to speak in favour of this motion, because there's been at least one speaker who's voted against the last two motions, who suggests that it's the intention of the committee to bring in the multinationals. Let me be clear, if we vote against this motion, the subcommittee, the view of the committee is that there is no multinationals to be brought in at this stage. It will be an option that could be a recommendation of a report when the report happens, but the committee will not be able to bring in multinationals before the committee concludes its work and reports to the Joint Committee. You know, there's been the famous line about who fears to speak. I think the question now for this Finance Committee is who fears to ask. You know, the fact that we're actually afraid to ask, paralysed by fear to ask multinational companies questions. What we're doing here, in my view, on the Finance Committee is holding an inquiry or holding hearings into multinational corporation tax without taking the prime players, the main players, in to ask them questions. It would be the equivalent. Let me say this, it would be the equivalent of having a banking inquiry without inviting the banks in. Can you imagine if this committee were tasked with holding the banking inquiry and we decided that we would report back, we would invite in the ministers who were there on the night, we'd invite in the regulator, and we may make a recommendation. Let me finish. You may not like what I'm saying, Chairperson, but I am entitled to say what I'm saying. I am entitled to say what I'm saying. I am in order. I'm drawing comparisons between...
You're making prejudgments.
I am drawing comparisons between what is about to be agreed at this committee and what has been agreed by the last two motions, which would be the equivalent of a banking inquiry, taking in the architects, the regulator, the Minister for Finance, the ministers that were there in the night, but then saying we'll make a report, and that report may include a recommendation to take in the banks. That is exactly what the Finance Committee is doing here today. It is absolutely, in my view, ridiculous that we're having a discussion on multinational corporation tax, but this committee feels paralysed. So much fear to actually even suggest that we would ask any multinational company a question which they, on information which they have voluntarily and willingly gave to other parliaments in other jurisdictions.
Two other responses to that, Kevin Humphreys.